Hello, everyone. This is Albert Barrocas, a charter member of ASPEN since 1976, on the advisory board, a fellow of ASPEN, and it is my privilege and honor today to be able to interview in our series of historical highlights for the 50th anniversary of ASPEN, Sue Calvert Finn, who I met at the first Clinical Congress in 1977, who has been a long-time friend, mentor, supporter, and a champion for nutrition and nutrition support, past president of the American Dietetic Association, now the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And this is occurring on the day that we're celebrating the annual recognition of registered dietitians and nutritionists. So for me, it's a great honor and privilege. And here is Sue Calvert Finn. Sue, it's great to see you. I want you to introduce yourself, give us your background in your preparation to being a dietitian, and then we'll ask some other questions.
Well, thank you, Al. It is a pleasure to be here and to be your guest. You are also an honorary member of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And I remember that day very well. It was such an honor when you became a card-carrying member. So I am delighted to be here. And yes, we all must be very old, because I certainly do remember 1977 in Chicago, a very cold, blistering day.
Yes, ma'am.
And it was the very beginning of what became a wonderful movement in nutrition support, both from the parental side and the enteral side. It was a great day. Now, I am a dietitian, and I've always been a dietitian, but I received a master's in public health nutrition from Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, and a PhD in nutrition science from The Ohio State University. I am a Buckeye through and through. And I was preparing, like most people that get doctorates in nutrition science, for the most part back then, I was preparing to get an academic appointment. And I started that in the medical school at Ohio State. And one day I met a friend who said, you really would be good in industry. We're going to be really focusing on medical nutrition products. And so in 1974, I was 30 years at Abbott Nutrition, was Ross Laboratories, was Ross Nutrition Products, and I was Abbott Nutrition, and I spent 30 wonderful years there in a partnership with leaders like you, Al. So I had a fabulous career there. And then when I retired, I thought, 30 years, you got to go do something else. And so I went to Washington, D.C., and I worked for the food and beverage industries collectively for about 10 years. And then I did some consulting. So I have had a wonderful career, and it's getting people like you and friends like you that are long-term. I wouldn't miss this ASPEN meeting right here in my hometown. So thank you.
Great. But why did you get interested in nutrition to begin with? What was there a particular event that took place?
Yeah, there was a particular event. It was our high school cafeteria manager. I grew up in Berea, Ohio, which is a suburb of Cleveland. See, I'm a Buckeye. And we had to write a paper about what do we want to be when we grow up. And I was thinking a junior in high school. And I thought, I'm going to go find Mrs. Craigenow, our cafeteria, managed all the schools' food service. She was a dietitian. And she told me, become a dietitian. I became a dietitian and never regretted it, never looked back. It's
Well, that's great.
Career.
Wonderful story. Wonderful story. Now, what got you interested in ASPEN? How did it come about? I know that you were there in the formative years, long before, like I said, I became a member in 76, but you already knew about all this going on.
Yeah, Al, I do remember, and I had to search a little bit to think about when did we first learn about ASPEN? Well, I started at Abbott in 1974. So it would have been those years between then and 77. And I think it was, well, one thing it was the article written by Charles Butterworth, Malnutrition in the Hospital Closet, the skeleton in the closet.
The skeleton in the closet. That was in 74.
That got everybody very interested, not just in a product, but gosh, there's a need here. There's a critical need for patients to be better fed. And so that became a theme, not only of Abbott Nutrition, but other companies as well. We said, wait a minute, we've got to do something about that. This is a cause that we need to address. And so that is got me very interested to see what was happening. And it was a multidisciplinary group. And how interesting it was, because you had doctors, both internists and surgeons, you had PharmDs, you had nurses and dietitians. We've been, as dietitians, have wanted a team approach, and to be able to reach out to people like you that could make a difference in patient care and surgical outcomes. That was just sheer magic. And so we became very engaged in nutrition support teams, what was happening around the country. We did a lot of research, a lot of market research. It was fabulous. But it was a movement. It was a movement that inspired, I think, any of us, whether you were in the private sector or in the public sector or in a profession. We had to do something. And that movement's still abreast today, slightly different, but it certainly is still ongoing and it needs to be.
Well, I appreciate that. Sue, I think it's so important to hear that story because we've heard it from others as well. And I think ASPEN was very pivotal, sort of a cornerstone of interdisciplinary teams. We started as disciplines, we became multidisciplinary, then we started working together, interdisciplinary, and now I'm even pushing for a transdisciplinary, both to unite education as well as cross-functioning that is occurring. I think the current generation doesn't realize the history that initially it was all working in silos.
Right.
And to me, ASPEN was the open door that not only brought in various disciplines, I call it the core four, dietitians, nurses, physicians, pharmacists, and then later on we added researchers and others, consumers, etc. And I think that is a story that needs to be told, because not only was it into the disciplines, but also particularly industry reached out to those of us that were in small community hospitals. And that message was carried on. We had an interview recently with Murray Seltzer, with Ronnie Chernoff, with Jim Long, and letting us know how they spend endless hours traveling throughout the country to reach out those little isolated areas, if you will, and the community hospitals.
Boy, Al, I certainly remember those trips because we went on a lot of them too. What was interesting from an industry perspective, those us that were scientists and professionals in the industry, and any of the people in industry, we were partners. We were partners with you. We weren't just funding sources. We believed that what we were making can help people. And everybody does well when that happens. It wasn't about this product or that product. It was about nutrition. It was about multidisciplinary approaches. And it was a great pleasure to work at that time. I was telling Jim Long that I think one of my friends, Maria Steinbaugh, says we were there in Camelot. And I think that kind of says it. We were new, we were fresh, we were motivated by a cause of feeding people, because we know people that aren't well fed don't recover from illnesses. Wounds don't heal. It's that they pass away too early. We know how very important nutrition support is. Still today, we still have ignorance on that. When you talk to dietitians in clinical settings that aren't necessarily with nutrition support, they say the same thing. I have to educate doctors and nurses. We have to educate. So that message goes on. It may be slightly different. I do well remember all of us doing television. Jim Long did it, you did it, Murray did it, I did some of it. And one day I was called up to our CEO's office because hospital administrators had complained that we were bashing hospitals. Well, we really weren't. We were saying that it's ignored, but I guess you could interpret that as bashing hospitals. And the CEO looked at me, he said, keep going. You're absolutely right. Keep going. You've got to tell the story. That was an aha moment of how important it is and was in the early days to make sure people recognize that. And it is still important today. There's a job to be done, and the teams need to do that.
going back to your initial 1974, at that time, what was your title at Ross Abbott? And also, were you able to sell the concept to the higher ups?
Yes. One is I went in young, kind of young means you didn't know much. So I learned as the whole company learned about the product. And I was not bashful and shy. I was one of the first women hired in that company, and certainly the first RD with a PhD. So I had a little bit of advantage. They looked to me. I don't know if I knew any more or not, but I sure used my voice, and I was out and about with people like you, and I was able to translate that to my management, and they believed. They believed.
Yes.
I remember taking our CEO to hospitals, and I took him specifically to George Blackburn. And I said, "This is Dr. Blackburn. I want you to listen to what he says." And he held up a can of our product and he says, "This is medicine. You have to drink this. This patient has to have this. And that's what you need to teach people," he said. So the voices of people like you that we brought into our company, and I'm sure other companies did the same thing, you had a lot of power and influence. And that enabled me to sell it inside too. That's another part of a team effort. And as I said, Al, I think people in we were new in industry. We were excited about what was happening, that we could make a difference. And we were partners with you. We weren't just funders. We did fund, obviously, but we really believed in it and we made things happen along with you. It was a team effort.
Yeah, it was, and continues to be.
It
Some of us
certainly does. It
still
certainly
active.
does.
Became president of the ADA. Did this create any kind of conflict between the
No,
societies? Was it an enhancement? Was a synergism? How did you look at it?
well, I looked at it and they looked at it because we have very strong practice groups in nutrition support. They looked at as an advantage. And actually, remember, I'm coming from industry. I'm president of the academy. They didn't even think about that in those days. I mean, I didn't talk about my products. I talked about the importance of people, the importance of nutrition care. And then we went on, of course, and this was in the early 90s, 93 to be specific. And what we did is that we had lobbyists. Political scene is so important and was important there. And that's where we coined the term medical nutrition therapy. And dietitians have used medical nutrition therapy as a kind of an umbrella or focus for what they lobby for reimbursement. So it worked beautifully together. You'd like to recreate it, but it's all different environment now. But equally, that innovation exists and smart people are here.
At this point, I just want to interject my opinion, but throughout my experience, and I dealt with I think the majority of industry, never once was I told to sell or promote a product. The idea being that if you had a market share, that you would profit by enlarging the pie.
Everybody wins.
Everybody wins. And I think that's one of the reasons why education was supported by industry so much. And certainly for those of us, like I said, in small community hospitals that didn't have grants or academic funding, it became very important that industry supported our various efforts in that fashion, in a very ethical fashion. What were some of the highlights, pro or cons, that you recall during the early days, or fun memories that you may have?
Oh, my fond memories go back. One thing is, it was such a pleasure. It wasn't work. It was a movement that we were all so committed to. And it was so doggone fun. We get together to plan those meetings and we'd have all kinds of opportunities to interact and really get to know one another. When you got to know each other, you began to open up into different views. It was fabulous. And of course, dietitians hooked onto that. I mean, I think dietitians are still your largest segment of members. And that's no surprise. That's our field. We grew up there.
If I'm not mistaken, it's over 70%
Is it
of
that high?
membership.
Well, we have a DPG, a practice group that's dietitians and nutrition support.
Right.
So they're very engaged in this too. So it's kind of no surprise it would be dietitians. So, and I'm
Yeah.
pleased to say that that's great. But we have an opportunity to work with people like you. And it would
Thank
never have happened
Thank you.
unless we had good partners that we worked. I mean, I can't tell you, every once in a while I see, boy, do I miss George Blackburn.
Yeah.
And do I miss Bill Steffi? Because these were friends. They weren't, and you, I love you. I get your pictures and I mean, all of that. I was delighted to see Judy Long as well.
And many visits to New
I
Orleans.
know. Oh, we had such fun. We'd go to those events and we'd sit down and think about who should be on this program. And
And your colleague, Mary Beth, even rode in one of our floats
oh, I know she did. She's still
in
there.
Mardi
She's
Gras,
still at Abbott.
So we're
She's
looking
my
forward to
doll.
seeing
She's
her.
a doll. She's just a
So
doll.
we're about to celebrate the 50th anniversary. How do you see the next 50 years for both nutrition support and ASPEN?
Well, it depends how good we are to get people realizing how important nutrition is and nutrition support is. And that is the responsibility of all members of ASPEN and all other professionals like dietitians and nutrition support within the academy. It's absolutely critical we keep up the movement and we talk about it in terms of today's issues. Today's issues are about prevention. We hear all the things that are going on in Washington, and we need to take a very strong stance in making sure we're represented there and use that as a platform to talk about the prevention of illnesses, the prevention of long hospital stays, the preventions associated with complications of cancer treatment. We need to broaden out our message perhaps a little bit broader than just nutrition support, but we should be every nook and cranny of the prevention because we're well equipped to do that. As it is the RN's responsibility, it is the pharmacist, it is the surgeons and the internists, and certainly the dietitians. So we should be very involved with that policy platform to expand our role. I would join forces, continue to join forces with large organizations. Join other groups within the academy. There's no reason we have 100 and some members that are registered dietitians. We should be joining forces with them that are working in a variety of fields and in specialties, from obesity to diabetes to cardiovascular disease. We're joining forces there. And I am quite sure that's true of other societies as well, nurses and pharmacists. They have a broader base as well. I think how important it is that we really expand what we're doing. I think when you begin to look at the program for ASPEN this year, you begin to see where the trends are. Obesity, much more growth international. Of course, these have been going on for some time, but the complications and treatments during obesity, all those things are extremely important. And with that, with energy and enthusiasm and good scientific data, we should be able to really grow nutrition support within association and with other professionals as well.
Well, I'm very encouraged by those remarks because that's my same train of thought, and I put it together in an editorial that came out last month in NCP, looking at the next 50 years. I believe that the strategic plan that ASPEN has from 2022 through 2025 includes somewhat of an expansion to nutrition care as a human right. As part of that, there's an international work group that has been developed that is trying to push it up all the way to the United Nations. In 1948, the UN said that healthcare and food were a human right. But this group is trying to bring it forward to being nutrition care so that there's a individualized, survey, screen, assessment, diagnosis, treatment, and follow-up, similar to the global composite score that has been developed through Medicare. And so I think that ASPEN needs to, if you agree, maintain its dominance, if you will, its importance as a nutrition support society, but expand its horizon and move from rescue and repair, as I call it, to health promotion, disease prevention.
Absolutely.
But incorporate that more and continue to be, a global leader as it is now, though it is, thought of as a national society?
I think we have to continue to show that by our data and good science that we control costs, because regardless of where you're in a nursing home or home care, that's so important. But I think you're absolutely right. We got to shift from rescue and repair, where we need data, but we also need to talk about prevention. And that's the message we hear today, and we're going to hear that for a long time. And so we've got to spread our wings a little bit and broaden out and make sure that message resonates with people that can make a difference in the policies.
What specific memories do you have, or is there anything else that you want to add?
I think the most important thing is the excitement that we shared with this initiative. It was a very exciting time to be so passionate about a subject and something that was going to really benefit people. All of us felt that way. And I think we had an enormous amount of fun. We had great friendships and we did good work. And all of that, as I look back, was really an important contribution of ASPEN.
That's great. Well, Sue, it's been a pleasure and an honor to have you in this interview. I look forward to seeing you in about a week or so.
You betcha.
And any lasting thoughts?
No, except that we're very fortunate to have the national meeting of ASPEN in Columbus, Ohio. My friend said, Columbus, Ohio. I said, yes, one of the fastest growing cities in the country. So it's a fabulous city, and I know you're going to have a wonderful experience in Columbus.